Hello there and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do something a little bit different and we're going to flip it up and go and have a look at one of my favourite all-time UK garage artists, which is Todd The God Edwards. Hailing from New Jersey, Edwards has made a big impact on this side of the pond, playing a pivotal role in shaping the sound of UK garage. His first releases came in the early 90s, and with 122 releases on Discogs including 5 albums, I think it's fair to say he's quite a prolific producer. Now before we go any further, I think this would be the perfect moment to cue in this epic video I found on YouTube of Todd Edwards playing his first ever set in the UK at Time and Envy in Romford.
Right now we introduce the outside remixer and producer from the United States of America, the legendary Todd Edwards.
What I find particularly fascinating about Todd is that he's one of those artists that really stands out from the rest of the crowd, and this is particularly due to his distinctive sample chopping and vocal chopping techniques, and that's really what I wanted to focus on in this video today. The key aspect to this record chopping technique is really about finding samples from lots of different records and then putting them together by pitching them around to all fit in the same key and in the same sonic space, and then the last bit is to piece them all back together like a puzzle. So in order to do this, we first need to create our own custom sample bank, and I use this sample manager called Audio Finder to organise all my music. And what I've essentially been doing is, you can see I've been going pretty hard at this, and I've got 1300, nearly 1400 chops. And so I've been taking records and just slicing them all up into their little ingredients that kind of make them up. What I think I might do is just go a little bit from scratch so you can see the workflow here. So funk and soul records are really great from this, and actually for this I've just taken a few things and ripped them off YouTube.
I've been known for making up excuses.
Okay, so this one looks pretty cool, and it doesn't actually matter too much if there are drums in, because you can work around them in your samplers. So don't be scared of having a few drum hits. You don't have to find records with just kind of an intro section in. So these are perfect chords at the start, even though some of them are panned. Yeah, this is really nice. So I'm just putting markers whenever there's a new slice or something I think would be cool as an individual slice. But you can see there's some difference in the left and right. So maybe for certain chops I would want to... It's such a good audio editor this. I can sample that to like a new mono channel if I want to.
Lately I've been known for making up excuses.
Another thing is this sample's really good, so I can go in here, I go export markers I think, or no, I go split by markers, and I can get the song name, If I come back to Twisted Wave and I can make these WAV just in case I want to bring them into Machine, and come to this playlist, create a new folder and export them all in there. So I've got these slices, I can get rid of this one, and these are all the chops. I know the last one's just going to be the whole file, and then I can rename them. And another thing I like to do is this Twisted Wave, it has this batch processing, and I have this fade. I made a small fade which is like a 20 millisecond fade, and so I can drag them all in and then add fades that start to get rid of all those clicks and pops that you're going to have from the way I've chopped them. And then I can come back into my list here and I can drag them in. So that's a really great slice there. So this is my general workflow. Is I would probably rate some of the other ones as well, but the idea is I'm just going to rate the best chops from this record, and I'm specifically looking for things I think would sound good in out of the context of these other chops. So things that would be good in isolation, just like this chop. I feel you could fit that into so many tunes, pitching it up and down. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, and the reason I've actually bothered rating them, is so I can click this rating and I can order all of these songs that I've been kind of sampling and have all my favorite chops of all the songs here. So if I select them all, you can see from here all the way up I've got now 128, which is pretty much perfect because in a sampler you can only have 127 slices. So I've basically got a whole sampler instrument from start to finish with all my favorite chops from all these records I've been sampling. So the next step is to take all of these samples from Audio Finder and to get them into Logic, and I have to do a little bit of a work through here and go through Meta first just to get them to come into the new Logic. It's just some weird workflow thing between those two programs. But now that I've got them in, I've basically got all of these slices spanned all the way up and down the keyboard, and then I have to tune them all together. And I kind of cheated for this a little bit and just used mixed in key because it made my life so much easier. So I can see the name that I'm on, and I can see that these are all in A minor. So this is looking like it's in E minor. So they're in E minor, so I need to get E minor to A minor, and I just have this on my sticky, this circular fifths I use all the time. So I'm in A minor, and actually E minor is not terrible, so I could just leave them in E minor because even though it's not the same key as my other chops, it's a fifth up from them, and so there's only going to be one note different in that scale. And even if you know nothing about music theory, this circular fourth and fifth is really helpful for doing stuff like this, and you can just figure it all out. Some really nice Enya chops in there, and these are all going to be up on my Patreon. All the project files and lots of these samples I'm going to put up there for everyone, so feel free to check that out. Anyway, so that's the process I followed, and if I come into the one I actually used in my track to this Mega Chops instrument, I did exactly that process, which was quite painstaking but 100% worth it in the end. So you can see all these chops are tuned to different amounts. That's like the root one. And I've pitched them all to fit in this key of A minor. So the idea is you have all these chops from different records, you've pitched them all around to fit in the same key, and then you just have this really fun instrument you can start jamming with. And the one thing about the jamming is you don't have to come up with the whole idea straight away, and what I would do is piece little bits together. So I start with this idea. And this was really the foundation of the whole tune, is around that lo-fi chord there. And then I start to bring in little bits. if I maybe jam out actually and duplicate this instrument, so let it roll and just try and find cool things to go along with it. So it needs another. So this is a good way to test the next chop. I know I want something to respond to or to kind of correlate with this note here. That sounded kind of good to me there. Either one of them. So it's not quite right there, but that might be cool. Now, one trick I was also doing, which is really cool, is to come into the sampler and we can utilize more of this circle of fourths and fifths stuff by actually tuning the whole instrument up and down. So even though this is all these chops now have been pitched around to fit with my key of A minor, if I pitch the whole instrument up 5 semitones or 7 semitones or even up an octave, and I can go pitch them down the same way, I can find lots of other keys where the chops will fit relatively to my key of A minor. So if I go +7, I'm going to go up to a fifth above, which is now they're all going to be playing in the key of E minor. But I might be able to find some, if I couldn't find chops in the initial one that were working, I might be able to find some up here. I like this chop. That's a cool extra thing in there. I can even have it in this bit. Okay, now we're starting to build up all these different chops. This is a cool one. That's an interesting sound there. Maybe I go and duplicate this sound again, and before I was going +7, I could go -5 to go down. I'm just trying to find nice sounds. Well, that's kind of cool. Okay, so we've nearly got a groove now happening. So it's kind of nice, and that obviously I did quite quickly and quite roughly. So I took a lot longer with my project, but that was really the premise, is you have so many options. Once you have this big sampler instrument with the ability to then pitch it around in different ways, you could have 127 chops, but then you can pitch it 5 or 6 different times and access, hundreds of different slices. So it's kind of worth putting in the work in the beginning when you realize the power of having this kind of sample bank all pitched in the same instrument. Anyway, so that one turned out pretty cool, and I love just messing with these samples and chops, and I had so much fun that I actually went and made a whole new tune. So I might quickly give you a demo of that and then run you through a few more tips and tricks regarding this sampling technique. So I was pretty happy with this tune as well, and I definitely got that pumping, uplifting garage feel to it. And I'm doing a few more cool things, and obviously with these samples, as well as pitching them up and down, EQing them differently is a real big help to making some of them fit. Some of them have just got basses you don't need in it, or weird frequencies, and as simple as like I've just got a low shelf on a lot of these, and then on this one I'm pulling out more of the bass, and little things like that you're going to have to do to make all these sounds fit together cohesively. So it's got that bass hit. So I just had to get rid of that bass stab there because it was obviously interfering with the rest of my track. So little things like that are really important, and I've done that all the way through. And then another thing I've done in here, which is a really cool trick, is actually just to put a really long reverb. So I've just, the other ones have reverb on, but this one I've just made the decay long and I've turned the mix up, and then I've got this sidechain happening after the reverb. So the sidechain starts to pump the reverb. And it gives this really cool kind of washy pumping sound. So effects like that are really handy. And then the other things I've done, which was maybe a little bit like Todd Edwards as well, because I was listening to an interview of him saying he would use his own vocals sometimes if he couldn't find things.
My name is Todd Edwards.
And I had this this main kind of thing that's happening with the chops here. So what I could hear is there's this U which comes from the original sample, and then there's this noise, which to me it's a little bit sounds like jump, but it's just a synth playing like a chord or a stab. And so I then just went and recorded myself saying, "You gotta jump." You gotta jump. And then I've pitched them around. I've done quite an extensive morphing just to make my voice sound less lame. If I take all of this stuff off, you jump. You jump. So I've pitched it down as well and just basically like filtered it and compressed it, and I've taken some high frequencies down with this decimal. And then I've got like a full whack auto tune on as well. So I'm just trying to make my voice sound kind of cooler and less lame is the main idea there. Just with like, it's not random plugins, but I'm definitely just throwing paint at the wall till it sounds good. You jump. You jump. And a final really important point that I have been doing all the way through this is using in this sampler, whenever I've got a chop that I'm kind of running, you can see this is a perfect example here where not only am I moving the start time of this chop to kind of time it with my song, I'm also using these ping pong loops to kind of camouflage all these edit points. So if I just push this back over, hopefully... Yeah, so this is the one I've done it with. I've done actually, this is a different one, so I can show you how much I've been doing this. All of my chops really have got these fades at the start, and I'm playing with the start and end times, and I'm using ping pong loops to make everything fit together. So it is a lot of work, and I think that's why it's really handy to do this stuff in a sampler, because in audio it'd be really tedious to do it in this way. So getting this to, if you listen to it without, if I just take this off, it's got like a weird ending where it kind of has a bit of a click, and so having this on, it it just flows a little bit better. It's still got artifacts in there and weird things going on, but that's the whole idea. Is it's going to be a little bit rough around the edges with this style of music, because there's going to be drum hits coming in and little clicks, but you can use these techniques to get around them. And then finally, I thought it'd be really fitting to finish with one of Todd's biggest inspirations, who is Enya. And I'm sure all of you have heard of Enya, or will have at least heard her music. And she's this incredible Celtic, just a beautiful singer who's also really unique in her style. And Todd said multiple times I've heard him say he's particularly inspired by the way she would use her voice as like an instrument, all these oohs and ahs, and creating different melodies and textures out of it. Really amazing stuff, and it's almost sacrosanct to touch her music because it's so good as it is. You can't really improve on it, but I did have a little go at it here. And one last trick I did, which is just more of the same as I was doing before, is I've taken her chops of her voice, which is kind of just this thing here. So I've got a lot of the same things happening with the sidechaining, and what I've then done is I've pitched it up a whole octave from where it was before. So this sample is at -1, and I've gone an octave higher, and then I've put this shimmer reverb on with a really high mix, and I've layered it directly on, playing the same slices as my other one, just to create this like thicker sound, really, this thicker layered sound. But it's just another really cool technique, just more of the same stuff, layering and pitching and all those things to make the samples work together and come up with cool creative ideas.